Okay, thank you all for joining us for our very first webinar of 2021. I'm still struggling saying that we finally got to 2021 and the first month's almost over. As always, we're excited to be bringing the MSP-Ignite Resource Network webinar series to all of our members as well as our invited guests. All of the speakers in this series throughout the year have made a commitment to provide our membership with actionable insight into areas that can help them grow or otherwise impact their bottom line in a positive way. While webinars like this are the start, they will also be providing more granular content when they visit our peer groups. Before I introduce our two speakers, actually three speakers today, I should go ahead and answer that one question that always pops up in the Q&A channel. Yes, indeed, we are recording this webinar, and yes, we will make it available to you. The slides will be sent to you, and a link to our YouTube channel, the MSP-Ignite YouTube channel, will also be included. During the presentation throughout, both during our sponsor part in the beginning, as well as our content later on, feel free to use the Q&A button to ask questions along the way. It is much easier for us to manage if you use the Q&A button as opposed to the chat. We'll do our best to monitor the chat as well. Our keynote speaker today for this afternoon is Alan Edwards, President of Eureka Process. Alan began his career in IT in 1994 as an entry-level tech, probably like most of you. Over the first 6 years of his career, his penchant for process improvement was recognized through several promotions on his way up to division manager. He went out on his own in 2002 and marched through the typical break fix to MSP and customized ticketing to PSA, eventually working with both Autotask and ConnectWise Manage. Today, Alan and his team are sought after as MSP coaches in a variety of areas. He'll be joined today by his colleague, Brooke Lee, to help spice things up. Of course, webinars like this do not take place without the assistance of our valued partners and sponsors. Today, we have the pleasure of being sponsored by BVoIP with President and CEO George Bardisi as our speaker. George was a mainstay on the town hall meetings we ran in the first few months of the pandemic, and he's always available to provide insight and help for the community. His focus today is to help you understand how modern communication can instantly help MSP operations. We're fortunate to have him with us. Good afternoon, George.
Thanks very much, everyone. Thanks, Steve, and appreciate you guys giving me a few minutes of your time today. I'm going to give you a 30,000-foot hit on 5 or 6 trends that are happening right now, and everything I'm telling you about how this can help you, keep in mind this is stuff that your customers that you're servicing today are probably looking for too. So with that in mind, keep that in the back of your head, because likely if you're needing help in your business or this helps your company, this can help their companies and organizations as well. So without further ado, my name is George Bardisi, and let's go through it from BVoIP. So teams. If you haven't heard of it, I don't know where you've been. Please come out of the cave that you've been in. So just earlier this month, CEO of Microsoft said Teams will be as big as the internet. It's a bold statement, although he's been one to back up what he says. Obviously, I'm sure most of you have either used it internally, recommended it to a downstream customer, or doing both, right? So, of course, for you, understand that Microsoft is about to spend a gigantic, even more than they already do, a gigantic budgeting spend on marketing Teams through the world. You've already seen them on commercials and ads and all over the internet. They had a big push on the Super Bowl last year. They're doing a big one again this year. So the ad spend on Teams to the outside business person or organization person through all of Microsoft's direct channels is over $500 million already, allocated for 2021. So you really need to, 1, understand it, 2, begin to use it if you're not already, and 3, understand how this helps your customer. One of the big things Microsoft's going to be pressing this year is the voice component of Teams. So, of course, today, what that looks like is for organizations under 300 users, it's $20 per user per month. For organizations 300 or more, it's $57. It's a big jump, but depending on the size of the business you are, one size fits the other, or not. At the end of the day, one thing that's commonly not understood is two things about Teams direct calling plans with Microsoft. First, every user in the company has to be on the system. It's all or nothing. Secondly, Microsoft does not allow you as the MSP to discount your own Teams calling plans or your customers' Teams calling plans, nor does their service and terms of use allow you to mark this up. Starting July 1, 2021, Microsoft is going to start actually collecting granular taxes and fees, where before they've just been figuring it out underneath the hood. So there's going to be a large price jump that happens after July 1, where there's communication taxes here in the US start to actually kick in on top of the $20 per user per month, where Microsoft's already taking it out of their pocket. So a couple of tips that are coming down the line. Of course, the reason they don't let you mark up or discount this through their CSP tier 1 or tier 2 avenues is because of the telco taxes. Exactly. They don't want you and them to be in a wholesale telco relationship, which means that you have to be a telecom provider and deal with all the regulatory that comes with that. Real quickly, and if you've been in a user group session, I've gone through this already. I'm going to quickly breeze through it. There's 3 Teams routing strategies, okay? Now, this is for you and your customer. It's 3 Teams routing strategies. One is you go to Microsoft. They've selected their provider here in the US and Canada, which is actually a company called bandwidth.com. Google them and you'll find some more about them. That's their carrier of record. That's what they're doing phone numbers and phone lines through and 911 through. And you're just buying it off the shelf with the pricing I provided earlier. The second routing strategy is you select your own dial tone carrier. You bring them to the table. They plug into the back of Teams through the back screen door. And now you have control over, at the very least, call forwarding, almost like a donut spare of your car, where if there's an issue with Microsoft for whatever reason, you can at least call forward your numbers. And the third routing strategy, this is called a hybrid deployment. It's starting to get very popular. And the reason for this is, as you as MSPs know, one size doesn't fit all, and the Microsoft Teams solution is fairly basic as a phone system. It's missing a lot of the features everybody's seen in phone systems for decades. But it's also missing some of the advanced communication functionality that Microsoft basically is leaning on third-party providers to do, such as contact center and integration and call recording and a bunch of other stuff that, again, a lot of people have been providing for a long time, but are not native to the Microsoft stack, nor do they look to be native anytime soon. So understand those 3 routing scenarios. And understand that if you're going with a third-party provider that isn't Microsoft's off-the-shelf plans, there is a SKU or 2 to be familiar with. Either the Microsoft Phone System SKU or license, or the Microsoft Common Area Phone or license. These are available through the 365 store, as well as your tier 1, tier 2 routes to buying subscriptions or, for 365 licensing. Understand that by going this route, you do get to get your discount here, right? For this $8 SKU before discount, where on the $20 or the $57 per user per month options that I mentioned earlier, there is no discount. There is technically no markup if you're following the service agreement. So make sure you understand all of this, because it's about to come at you like a tsunami. The $500 million plus marketing budget is coming, and you should ride that coattails or ride that wave as a wedge into your customers, and ultimately the ability for you to show them that you tackle this internally, and you can help them tackle it when they raise their hand and say, hey, what's this? And why is Microsoft saying I should go to it and I'm getting phone calls and emails about it? So that's Teams. The second thing that I want to mention is SMS. Is all the rage. Everybody wants to talk about SMS. Yes. You can SMS enable your business phone numbers. So number 1, your texts aren't getting phone calls and text messages directly, which we all know is a problem. Once that person hands that phone number out, it never comes back, right? It's like once something's on the internet, you're never going to get it off. So there is the ability now to SMS enable your business phone numbers. You can assign phone numbers to your people so that communication is being held within the company's phone numbers that they own rather than individuals' personal phone numbers. It's a great support tool. You can tie it into things like the AutoTask system and other CRM systems out there as well. And you can start to send and receive messages via as simple as an email through your mail client, Outlook, 365, whatever you're using. So this is becoming very popular. Your customers tend to pay attention to their text messages now all of a sudden, whereas emails seem to get lost at times. The only thing that sucks, and I use the word clearly, it sucks, is we're all starting to see spam SMS messages. You're starting the a car auto renewal company and the spoofed messages. So just like you have to tell your customers, be careful not to click on links in their email, you need to start educating them on not to click on links from SMS where it's a little bit shady. Moving along, chat. Following SMS is also very popular. If you haven't already implemented chat, you've probably talked about it. Your customers have asked you about it. Start looking into implementing chat wherever is possible. I'm not saying that this is going to replace ticketing. I'm not saying this is going to replace phone calls, but it's nice to be able to quickly run through messaging, and these chats can go directly into your Teams channels or Slack if you want to use the Microsoft alternative. Vice versa, so can your SMS messages go into those channels as well, right? So you can converge your communication into one place. The other thing that's all the rage, recording calls. Sounds like an old thing, but it's really coming back by popular demand simply because everybody's working remotely and they want to make sure people are doing what they're supposed to do. And with everybody not in the same office location, it's becoming very important to be able to CYA. Here, we've been able to get those recordings into Autotask, but that's just an example of being able to merge call recordings into your call flow and play them and download them. Reporting follows call recording, right? Like if I want to see all the calls from my support team, I should be able to see that very quickly and understand if I'm doing the job because our staff is distributed and I want to make sure that my customers are being served and things are being done in a timely fashion. Make sure that you have reporting metrics, especially for your remote workers. And this is where I'm going to end. I'm going to fit directly within my time frame, I think. Connecting your communications now to your CRMs and your PSAs and your ERPs, not just for you, but for your customers, is starting to become very, very top of mind when making buying decisions. If you can immediately pull up records and immediately attach calls to tickets for you, could be deals for your customer, could be opportunities, could be sales appointments, could be notes, whatever it may be. These are the things that are becoming very sticky, right? It's more than just a computer on the floor. It's now tying into the operating system of your company and your customers as well, so that they look at you more of a strategic advisor, not just a guy they call when they accidentally break their CD-ROM tray or their DVD drive because they thought it was a coffee cup holder. And without further ado, I'm now going to pass you off to Alan from Eureka Process, who's your main speaker and will teach you more than I did today.
Thank you, George. Now, you actually got me taking notes, so I hope I can add just as much value. All right, so today we're talking about hiring, recruiting, and screening process with limited time. This is an action-packed webinar, but what I would like to start with is to hear from you. So if you'll pull out either your cell phone, smartphone, or a browser, go to swiftpolling.com, enter code 14795, or text the number on the screen. I'm curious, how many people hours do you think you spend advertising, screening, and hiring for one single position? I'll give you just a minute to fill those in. It should populate live. I honestly don't know where you're going with these responses, so I'm curious to see how this turns out. So far, I have no clue. Okay, that could be a great common answer. A bunch of hours is what I'm seeing. So while this is populating, we'll leave this on the screen for a second. Eureka Process, it's in our name. We do processes, okay. And the reason this became so time-consuming for us is Brooke and I, we used to work together at an MSP ages ago. And we grew the company from 13 to 25 people. That's a lot of hiring. Our record in 1 year was 5,000 resumes that we had to scan through to grow the team. That was a lot, so we had to get good at it by necessity. And as you see from the survey here, there is a lot of time spent in hiring. So we've developed a process, and once the process is in writing, which you should always do, process first, then we can find tools to automate that. And we're going to share a little bit of all of those steps with you during this process. And if you want to ping me afterwards, maybe we can even come back to the slide and see where the final stats are. Thank you all for filling it out. So the answer is a lot of time, or I don't know, but probably a lot of time. And we can agree, hiring is expensive. This is what we do day in and day out at Eureka Process. So we are in all of the systems. Even though I sold my MSP a few years ago, we're seeing this stuff every day. So let's start with the basics, and I'm going to be very high level at this stage of the game, but I did want to cover it because it's important. If you want more information about this part, just put it in the Q&A. We'll definitely cover it some more at the end if you'd like to. Start with the basics to get the job out there. You need a job description. That's just a start. We've obviously got to add some more flavor to that. That's my word of the day, flavor. It's not my favorite part or thing to do, but we do it. We got to have a marketing statement, which is a little bit about your business, and of course the ad itself. So in your job description, the one that you're going to post, I highly recommend putting some context. I like to word it as a day in the life. And if you have somebody creative on staff, perhaps you could also make it a, I don't want to say fiction, but let's call it a based on a real story type movie. So make it fun, but give them an example of what it's like to work this job every day. Make sure you list what experience is required and be very picky and very thoughtful about the difference in required and would like. The longer your required list, the less likely you're going to find a candidate. And I will many times hire aptitude and attitude over experience. What skills are required? Again, keep required versus would like out there. And then you have to have a marketing statement. Again, I'm being brief in this area. Sell yourself. Don't forget, you want to convince them to come work here. It's not just a job. It's not just a salary. It better be a reason I want to come work with you over somebody else, especially with all of the competition for IT jobs. Maybe you have a really cool location you work from, a cool office or cool event or a cool culture. Mention it. When it comes to placing the ad, take those three concepts we just talked about, put them together. I usually get questions on this and arguments all day long. Do what you think's best. I believe in advertising pay. It's a type of filter to save my time. Make sure to tell them what to do. Are they submitting a resume somewhere? Are they placing a phone call? Are they clicking submit on a form? Post the job itself, and here's how we post it. One, tell your staff we have a job opening. Perhaps there's an internal promotion you didn't think about, or perhaps they know somebody. Maybe you also have a referral program for that. We love using LinkedIn organic and paid to promote jobs. It's actually become our second favorite so far for posting for those who are going that route. We actually use Indeed paid posting the most, even though I believe you get one free organic post there as well. You can even post on Facebook. The process of posting it will leave it on your company page, and it will actually ping everybody who follows your page the first time you post it. And you can, of course, do a paid sponsorship for that as well. Craigslist is not dead. It is not my favorite place to post. But when we're posting jobs, sometimes we will use Craigslist, depending on the market. It's $30 to $50 one time for 30 days. Now, I want to get to the good stuff. The screening process. This is where I think the secret sauce is. So Brooke and I, we've been working on a V-screening service for our MSP clients, and we're about to approach 2,000 resumes in the last quarter. So we hope to break that 5,000 resume strategy. But this is only possible through efficient process. And Brooke is also a presenter here, so she might unmute herself and add some context to these stories. So I'm going to start by giving you the whole kit and caboodle. There it is. So I think that ends my presentation. No, I'm just kidding. I'm over 40. We're going to have to zoom in and break this apart. I'm going to give you a chance to participate in our screening process as if you're a candidate, so you can take those with you and have a deliverable. If you will send an email to opportunities@eurekaprocess.com, make sure the subject has the word demo in it. It's actually going to enter our ticketing system, which is what we're using to automate this process. But you could still take all of those templates and use them for your own. So play along at home. Brooke's going to be womaning our service board and moving tickets over for you, so you'll get all the email notifications. So here we go. When you send it in, we are going to get a new status. The tilde means we send you an email. And all we're doing is we are reviewing that resume for a very basic skills match. That email, again, I apologize if I went too fast on that. Let's back up one slide, is opportunities@eurekaprocess.com. I'll leave it there while I keep talking for a few more moments. So you'll get an email back that says, welcome, and here are the next steps. And then Brooke is going to walk your ticket/resume through the process as if she actually evaluated it. Thank you, Laura. That's in the chat if you need that again. So you can walk along as well. Brooke, are you seeing resumes come through?
I just got one from William, and he just should have received our first email. I just moved him through the first piece of the process.
Congratulations, William. Brooke reviewed your resume and felt that your basic requirements, again, we're not digging too deep because we don't have time for this 5,000 resumes in a year. Basically, you've worked in IT before. You have the word server in there. We're going to move you on because we have automations, and you're going to be invited to our email interview. And you're going to get our 3 magic questions. All right, here's the 3 magic questions. What do you know about our company? We're not looking for perfection. Actually, Brooke, shall I let you take it away at this slide?
The first part of the process is we look at the resume, we see if you have what we need for that particular role or position we're looking for. The first thing that I ask you is, what do you know about our company? This is going to tell me, do you have enough oomph to go Google us? Do you have enough whatever to go figure out what the name of this company is based on the information I send you in the questions? Can you go figure out who we are? So that's one of the first questions we ask. The second one is, what makes you a better fit for the company than other candidates? This is an opportunity for them to kind of toot their own horn. Tell me what makes you a better fit. How they answer this question will tell you a lot about the person. If they go on and on about they're the best thing since sliced bread and everybody else stinks, that's going to give me a bad gut feeling. If some of their answers are, I don't really know about the other candidates, but let me tell you maybe what makes me a good fit, that also gives me a different gut feeling about that person. You can get a lot out of that. One of the third questions we ask is a simple question. How do you buckle a seatbelt and why you should do it? The reason that we ask this question is because in IT, there are things that we do every single day. They are rote. They are something that we do without even thinking about them. With users, I have to be able to explain something to them in a manner that they can understand, and that person is not an IT person. That person is really good at their job. That's why they're there. That's why they do it. I need to be able to walk somebody through a very simple concept that we do every single day and we take for granted because we do it every single day. So when we ask somebody, how do you buckle a seatbelt and why do you do it? I'm looking for somebody that can explain a simple direction to someone without being condescending. What are the steps? Can you make it clear so that anybody can understand how to do this? And then the last part is, why should you do it? Is to make sure that this person can actually read the directions and follow them. Part of process is reading an SOP, reading a process from start to finish, following all of the process, not just the part that seems cool to you. So can you answer the entire question for me?
This actually weeds out a lot of people either through, I don't need to do this crap. We've gotten that response before. What are some other good and not good responses we've gotten?
I have people that will refuse to answer the seatbelt question. They will come back with something, this is stupid, I'm not going to answer it. So then obviously you're an instant no for me. I have people that will respond to the seatbelt question and it's 27 paragraphs long, but then they forget to tell me the why. So you're not reading the directions, you're not following the process that I've laid out. So that's some of the things that I see. Like I said, people, and this is going to sound bad, but the higher level engineers are the ones that will most frequently refuse to answer the question.
And cause problems because of that later, because they don't
want to follow the
making
process. They think they've been in the game long enough that they don't need to answer the question. They don't need to follow the process. They know everything. And at the end of the day, we all know that that's not true. No matter what level or what tier you are, everybody's here, same thing every single day. We've got to follow the processes no matter where you're at in this company.
So everybody who submitted their test email, their resume, congratulations. You got these questions in your inbox and you passed. You got the right answer. Good job. So we're going to move you on to the next step of the process. And for us, after the email interview, we receive a response. You like it. We used to, actually, I want to correct this. We used to do a phone interview requested, and you still might want that to be your process. However, in our case, we have switched to a personality testing survey that is unlimited uses. So we now send that before our phone interviews. But I'm going to go ahead and cover the phone interview now, though. But just keep in mind that we normally do the personality profile and such, and we'll review that second.
We've got 6 people in the system now, and everybody should now have the emails for the questions as well as the personality profile.
So let's go ahead and conduct that phone interview.
All right.
Things we like to ask questions about. This is the time to do a little deeper dive in the resume. After all, we're having a human-to-human connection here. Are there a couple of quick things you look for to ask about in the resume, Brooke?
Hold on one second. I want to get everybody to the Zoom video requested so they can get that email.
I'll add some quick context. Are there lots of job hopping? Are there gaps? If they're currently unemployed, why is that? What happened? There's no necessarily right or wrong answers. You're just professional and unprofessional responses, in my opinion. This is also a chance where the email interview initially was pass or fail. Now we can dig in and ask, like, well, why did you choose to answer it that way? Or if we had some concern, I give people the benefit of the doubt in the email interview. If it's okay, they pass. But now I could ask more questions to see if they're able to expand upon the concepts. And then, of course, the one that most of us probably jump in on, technical skills. Brooke does a lot of our screening for us, and she's been a level 1 tech before, but she's been in IT for decades. Yet we still somehow manage to tell who knows their technology and who doesn't. How do we do that? Some general questions we like to ask is just ideas for you. Please customize these for your job. What do you know about AD? My favorite response is, what is AD? Okay. Maybe it's a short interview. What are some other ones you have, Brooke? I'll put some of them on the slide here.
I asked him about AD firewall replacements. I asked him simple concepts about networking, DHCP. I asked him about firewalls. I asked him basic email questions, if they've done any server migrations, things of that nature. The format that I use for the interviews, I have an agenda that has all of the different types of questions that I want to ask. But to make the interview more conversational, I will jump around all over the place depending on where the conversation goes. I get to all of the questions, but it kind of just depends on, like I said, where the conversation with that person goes, because I want it to be free-flowing information both ways, questions, answers, etc. And I don't want it to seem like it's very robotic. That's no fun for anybody to be in the interview. So the technical questions are there. I do ask lots of questions about, I guess that would boil down to personality. I asked them about a manager they've had. What did they like about that person? What was a manager they had that they didn't like? Why did they not like that person? I asked them, do they prefer to work in a group setting? Do they like to do individual things? What kind of projects do they like to work on? One of the questions that is people do not like to answer, but I think it tells a lot about a person, is I ask them, what is the biggest mistake you've made in IT? And I want to know, what mistake did you make? What did you do the minute you realized you had made a mistake? Did you go tell somebody? Did you notify your supervisor? What was your response? How did you fix it? And then I want to know, what did you do to keep that from happening again? I have one that I did that was really, really bad very early on in my career. So I usually share that with them to sort of draw them out of their shell to get them to give me something. A Obviously, a red flag is anybody that says they haven't made a big mistake. So that's going to be an instant no for me, because we all make mistakes all the time. And it's about owning that mistake, figuring out how to fix it, following an SOP, figuring out, was the SOP wrong? Do I need to go fix that? And then how am I going to keep that from happening again? If you have somebody that's unwilling to share that information, that is a red flag for me. I also ask them, sometimes I say, where is it you see yourself in a couple of years? Where do you want to go? What interests you in IT? I ask them one of the questions to sort of get to that point. It's an interview. People are very nervous. It's stressful to do an interview. So that's another reason I try to make it really conversational, because the more that I can get that person to open up to me, the more information I will get about, is this person going to be a good fit for this particular company? Because it's more than just the technical skills. If the person has a really good attitude and they have the aptitude to learn, that I kind of gleaned that from the personality assessment, then I can teach somebody anything. But I can't teach them to have a good attitude. I can't teach them to be on the slide a team player. I can't teach them to work well with others. Anything. I can teach you how to prep a firewall. I can teach you how to migrate a server. All of those other things, those other types of skills, I don't feel that they can be taught. So I need somebody that kind of has that stuff intrinsically. I also allow people to ask me lots of questions during the interview. Part of the process that we have is I get a lot of information from the clients ahead of time. So if they want to know, what is the culture like? What is it like to work here? How many clients do they have? What type of information do you have? What type of documentation system do you use? And I answer every question that I have. And if I can't answer it, I tell them I will go track it down and I email it back to them. And then I follow up with that. So these are some of the types of questions that we ask. I also ask them what is their strongest skill in IT, and I also ask them what is their weakest skill. And you need to be able to give me both. And if you can't, again, that's another red flag.
And I do highly recommend the book, The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni. It's a good read. It's told as a fable, and I love those books that they just are easier to read. But it boils down to finding people who are hungry, humble, and people smart. And I think those are three great requirements, and they give lots of great ideas for additional questions to ask at every stage of the process, and how to ask those questions to get people to volunteer that information more readily. It's a great read. And of course, throughout this whole process, Brooke and I are pretty good at delegating to each other and distributing the load. We're taking notes, and then after that, we go back and review with the team at large. Like, hey, this is what I saw. This is the questions that I have. What do you want to do? We do have a bit of a unique perspective these days, which is that we are doing screening for some of our IT services clients. So we are actually not doing the final interview. This phone interview is currently a step after the personality profile test. So she asked good questions. We record that, we take the notes, and then we send all this information in a package over to our client to do the final interview. So that's how the process continues. Everybody should have already gotten the personality profile test. You are welcome to take the test. There's no cost to us. It takes 20 to 30 minutes. It kind of works like a chat bot asking you questions. It does personality and aptitude, and it even gives you your scores via email afterwards. So feel free to take that. No harm, no foul. Same is true for the recording. The testing of the email should still work.
We've got 8 people in there now, and everybody is at the Zoom video requested at this point. Do we want to tell some people they made the cut or not?
Yeah, let's approve everybody, because
everybody. All right.
Who has a filter? As we get into the rest of these processes, what would be next is the in-person interview. So you've done a personality profile. That's not, I should spend actually another minute on that. Personality profiles, in my opinion, aren't typically pass or fail. There are rankings that put them in an ideal fit for position or not. But I have found that people's personalities, they have often learned how to compensate for their personality. So I use that to inform my interview. Okay, so you have this personality fit, which could be a challenge for this job. How do you deal with this? And if it looks like it's something they recognized and they have systems in place for fixing that, there still could be a great candidate. However, we do test for aptitude, and there are varying laws about using this. as a measure for hiring. So keep those in mind. Consult your HR professionals. But we do look at aptitude as a big factor. If I have somebody who's not quite a skill fit, but they have a very high aptitude according to the test, I'm more likely to continue this process and get to know them better versus somebody who is not a skill fit and also doesn't have a high aptitude. Then we get to the in-person interview. I usually do this with interview by committee. Ooh, scary. At one place I was working as a service manager, we had our dispatcher in the room, myself as service manager, and the two owners walk into a room with one poor soul sitting across the conference room table for us. It's a little intimidating. I would usually tell a little joke about it and just open it up. And we had a battery of questions that we asked them. I'll let you see the whole process while we're talking. Some example questions. And again, it's about getting to know the person for culture fit, personality, as well as testing. We might go back to any of the other questions we've had and ask it one more time, looking for consistency. From the ideal team player, we are trying to prove that they are hungry, humble, and smart. And a lack of evidence is a failure to prove. So we have to find those out through Q&A. What book are you reading? That's always a good one. Learn who your comic book fans are and who your romance novel fans are. And why are they reading that? And what do they get from that? Another great one is if what they do at home with technology. If you're trying to hire tier 1 tech and they want to break into the industry and they don't have some sort of lab at home or virtual environment or something they're playing with, they're probably not going to grow fast enough. Brooke, you have more to add for the final interview?
And this is another place I think where you can really sell the company. This is part of maybe where you want to have your person there that can really talk about the culture of the company, the cool things that you do there. If you do some sort of game nights, if you have some team buildings where you guys all go out and go play golf or something like that. Because this is also a time where, the person is interviewing and they're selling themselves, but you want to, sell the company to this person about what makes you a cool place to come work at.
Excellent. So let me zoom in on how you hire the person, at least my thoughts on that. Once you, usually the person leaves the interview, they get into the parking lot, they pull off. And while we have the team assembled, we just interviewed, we talk about it. What boxes did we not check? What do we need to do about it? If we decide to make an offer, I usually get on the phone with that person and I make the offer verbally first. And I have found that gives me some flexibility. If it's the difference in a high level tech of $5,000 a year, if I lead with in writing, it might just not get signed. But if I lead verbally, I have a chance to fix and adapt to the offer before it gets in writing. So I get on the phone, I go over any concerns that we have or the excitements that we have. I get a verbal offer. If I can get us on the same page, then I send a written offer. Typically for me, it's just a 1-page document. This is the basics of the job. And this will be contingent upon you passing whatever final checks your company does, whether it's criminal background checks, DMV, whatever those are required for your jobs, and signing the actual employee handbook or an employment contract if you use those. But I start with baby steps and I keep them engaged and on board throughout. And then in true Eureka Process style, don't forget that the next step is employee onboarding, and that should start the moment they sign that paperwork, not the day they join the day they come into your building or your office. So I wanted to back up again, and Brooke, feel free to add things in here. Just a little color on the automations that we're using. Brooke, we can walk everybody all the way through the process, and congratulations, you're hired. We do not actually send you an automatic hired message. That is a verbal negotiation, as we just talked about. We are personally using ConnectWise Manage. I know a lot of folks are using Autotask. I have found this slightly more difficult in Autotask, and the difference simply being Autotask has a single list of statuses when ConnectWise Manage has a list of statuses per board, which is equally annoying in an opposite direction sometimes. but we're using statuses to trigger these things. If you saw a tilde on the screen, they're getting an automatic email template with some very basic tokens and variables. In my case, I am using an email connector that if the word demo comes in, I'm setting a type equivalent to an issue and auto task of Eureka Process. That's our company name, and a subtype or a sub issue of the position name. I think I called it demo. So that when you say, hey, thank you for applying for this job for this company, those are all variables being plugged into a template. You should have a copy of all those now. We are also using Calendly for scheduling. There are other great softwares as well for that. So I'm not saying you have to use that software. That's what we use. You're welcome to book an appointment there or just cancel it afterwards unless you want to meet with us, because we will follow through. We live and die by our calendars. But there's all sorts of branding opportunities throughout the various booking softwares as well. And you can set up cool rules like it's going to be for this long. We even have it automatically create the Zoom link for us, so we don't have to do that. I'm sure there are ways to build it in for Teams and phone calls as well. We also have, we realize using a ticketing system that sometimes automated emails for the first time get blocked by spam filters. So we built in a secondary process that if we requested an email interview and we haven't heard from you in 7 days, we actually follow up manually via a shared mailbox. And Brooke types up the email. Hey, we sent you this via this email address. Hadn't heard back from you. Are you still interested? Please check your spam folder. Sometimes we'll get replies back and we'll get things moving that way. We also have a couple of exit states. If at any point we don't like your resume, we have to determine if it's because you just don't have the skills for this position or if you don't fit our company culture. People who curse at us for asking them how to make a peanut butter sandwich, they don't fit our culture. You have a couple of other culture misfits, Brooke?
People that don't want to answer the questions. I've had a couple people, rarely do I make it to the interview process with somebody and at that point they don't become a culture fit, but it does happen. The most recent one that I had with that made it all the way to the interview process, answered the questions wonderfully, resume looked good, did great on the assessment, got to the interview. And basically this person had been in IT less than 5 years total. But when I asked the question, you know, what is your biggest mistake? He was telling me I've never made a mistake. And then he went on to tell me that he was doing things in IT that no one has ever done before. He was writing scripts that no one had ever done before. They were just groundbreaking and whatever. And I'm like, okay. So the interview kind of progressed along that path and it got worse. So he went to a do not hire ever, basically. This is not somebody that I would ever want to place with any client that I have, because he is not going to be a good cultural fit. This guy sees no mistakes in himself. He doesn't see anything wrong with what he does. He's unable to admit any faults whatsoever. So that would be another case of somebody that I would not place anywhere or recommend to anybody that I worked with.
Excellent. And by sorting your resumes that didn't work out into 2 stacks, you're also creating a place where you can go back to. A common example is we're hiring a tier 1 or tier 2 tech, and we're getting a lot of resumes in. You know, the skills kind of go all over the board. And you met some nice people that didn't quite have the skills. Next thing you know, you're hiring for a service coordinator or a dispatcher or even a receptionist. And you have resumes for people who are interested in an IT job that you've already partially screened. And we reply back like, hey, we have this opening for this other job. Would you like us to submit your resume for that application as well? Many times they're like, if they're still available, absolutely, please and thank you. And we've pulled some extra resumes that way. So right way to sort those. Obviously, if they don't respond, we throw it into a did not respond status, which sends them one more email. Hey, hadn't heard from you. If you're still interested, let us know before we auto close that out. I think that's it for most of our automations. We're gonna let's see what slides I have left.
We have 2 Q&A questions, Alan.
Yep, I will do those next.
Okay.
Don't forget your employee onboarding. And there are more processes available at some of the places on your screen here. Feel free to reach out to us directly to answer your questions. And John, if you want to take over the the slideshow, I can start answering questions that we already have, if that's okay. All right, so we have a question from Felicia. It would seem to be possible to use marketing automation platforms such as Mautic, which I have not heard of that one, for the email automations and integrations with Appointment Core. I don't see any difference between having marketing automation with leads and prospects and how you do this with job candidates. What are your thoughts on this? I think I agree with you completely, Felicia. The devil is in the details. We also use, I don't want to name drop. We use ActiveCampaign. There's lots of other great softwares out there for marketing automation. And I could definitely see how that works using tags, almost like statuses that automatically populate an email template and keep moving them along and still integrate with whatever your booking software is and whatever your testing software is. So yes, I could see any automation platform working. It's probably Zapier and whatever Microsoft's renamed their automation tool to recently as well. So yes, I think this could work anywhere. And there's even job tracking software. Just speaking to the IT crowd, we almost all have PSAs. So I tend to lean on that one first. And that's why I spent a little extra time diving into the details. But great idea. Umberto, hello, amigo. At what point in your process would you make sure we have a financial fit for both parties before you get to the end of your process? Excellent question. And I probably did not cover that as well. One, I do advertise pay. So that's the first filter. And typically, Brooke, when she's doing these phone interviews, which is the first time you meet them face-to-face, video to video, I usually would have pay brought up then to at least make sure we're in the same ballpark. I usually say,
I ask them, so again, I'm big on posting the pay. If you have somebody that's looking for $90,000 and this job's only paying 40, I mean, why do I want to go through all of the process of looking at the resume, getting to the phone interview just to find out that I'm 50 grand short on what this guy needs? So I'm a big proponent of posting the pay. So that checks one part off the list. The second part, when I do the Zoom interviews or the video interviews, I also ask them what pay range they're looking for. And I frame it with, I just want to make sure this is in line with the budget that I have for this particular role. Because it's posted. So anybody that I'm talking to, it's already out there. But if I'm, maybe 5 grand short, but this guy is just killing it and everything, then I might have some wiggle room and be able to, maybe negotiate and do something else. So 2 places, one in the job posting that we have, and the second one is in the interview. And that's before I would do any sort of pass off to anybody at that point. So I would know, like I said, after those 2 things, that this person's going to be able to fit in the budget that we have for this role.
And keep in mind, these days we're doing most of our screening, not for ourselves, but for our MSP customers. So I'll even say, like, this is not a negotiating point for us. We want to make sure we're in the same range. Because we found that small businesses are typically flexible in both directions, meaning sometimes they're willing to hire less skill at less pay with a great attitude and great aptitude. Likewise, they're willing to pay a little more with great skill, a little more than the budget was, because it wasn't just the budget number handed out by corporate. So we try not to make them say, this is the only way to do it. So if we enter range, we pass it on. So that during the final interview, those numbers can be negotiated more closely. And as I mentioned, the phone call after the final interview is where you can put the last negotiation. I'll throw in a bonus tip. This has saved many a candidate. Frequently, we have candidates that we're just not quite convinced they're at the level of technical knowledge they say they are, but we are convinced they're a great fit for the organization and that they would have great benefit for us. Then you have the pay difference in the places they fit. Many times, I will come up with a solution that is a lower starting salary, however, a written promise into their employment agreement that says, if you meet this very concrete objective, your pay raise is guaranteed. Some examples. All right, I think you have what it takes, but get this certification to prove it to me. And if you get that, your pay raise is there, because I think you have it, but I'm not sure. Or heck, if you even still work here in 6 months, I know you have the right stuff. So if you're here 6 months, built-in pay raise. I've used that sometimes to bridge gaps when the owner's not quite sure. that they're going to live up to every dollar ROI that they need to get. And I just want some time to prove that. And that's worked out a lot well. So Steve, I'll let you drive asking for more questions if you like.
Yeah, certainly. And I've got some as well for all of you. But if anyone has any additional questions for George from BVoIP, as well as Alan and Brooke, please feel free to post it. Bill Mulcahy, he had his hand up before, but then he never posted a question. So I'm waiting to see that question. As you guys were going through the presentation, first off, I love the fact that you have it. Not that I'm surprised, Alan, knowing you, but that you had it flow charted out the whole way. I loved it. And yes, it wasn't surprising to me either. You know, I always come back to, and Bill said he raised his hand by mistake, so we're good with that. We're not missing his question. I always come back to most of the people that are doing the interview, especially in an MSP, are technical in nature, probably started that way and then owned the business and grew. And yet, what we typically find is we struggle with our hires, not because of the technical, as Brooke pointed out earlier. We can train the technical, right? Yet we don't ask enough questions to find out things like, are they going to be a cultural fit? Or the bigger one, like I always say, what's the one thing we always say when we hire people, especially for guys like me and somewhat you, Alan? Everyone we hire is younger than us, so therefore we say, people today. And what's the comment? Just don't have the work ethic.
Yeah.
Yet, what questions they ask related to work ethic, they look at me like deer in the headlights. Oh, geez, we never, we ask them what their work ethic's like. Well, yeah, they're going to tell you it's good, and I found there's a couple of go-to questions that I use. And the one related to work ethic is I always get to the point where I say to them, hey, tell me a little bit about growing up. Like, what did your parents do when you grew up? Because no matter what the answer is, you can continue with work ethic, or oh man, both your parents worked 2 jobs. What was that like for you? As a child with your parents not home a lot, I'm guessing, right? And now you can get them to talk about, yeah, I swore I would make sure that I had a job where I never had to have a second one and I was going to work hard, right? Or depending on their job, you can point to work ethic. But I wrote this down when Brooke said something earlier. I said, Brooke, you talked about conversational and you don't want to just make it question after question. You want to have a conversation, but get all the answers at the same time. I always say that my goal, this goes for a lot of things, peer group members would say this too, but is to make them comfortably uncomfortable during the interview process. And what I mean by that is my first goal is to get them comfortable so they actually have a conversation with me rather than sit there rigidly answering questions, right? And then once I get them to that point, I want to ask some things that make them uncomfortable to see how they react to it. Does that make sense for you guys?
It does.
My goal is to not make people uncomfortable, but my goal is definitely to make them be honest.
Yeah.
So I start out very, just the gloss, hey, let's talk about your resume, blah, blah, blah. And then I start asking questions where I feel like the questions are going to get me an answer where they're either going to fluff up their answer I don't really want to say it's a lie, but you're going to give me an answer that may not be 100% truthful. And I always caution people when I'm training them is in an IT interview, the worst thing you can do is lie to me. Tell me you don't know something. I would rather you be 100% honest, because if you give me any hint that you do, oh yeah, I know how to prep a firewall, and then I start asking, and my interview is not super technical, but if I start asking some technical questions and you can't answer them for me, then that's a deal breaker. I would rather you just say, I don't know, or this is all that I've done with it. I haven't had a lot of experience with that. There's plenty of ways to frame something to tell somebody that you don't know something, but that you want to learn about it, or, I've had a little bit of experience, but I'd love to learn more. There's plenty of ways to have that conversation without telling me something that's not 100% true.
Yeah, actually, our first outsourced success story, he did everything was great, but I asked him one silly question. We're all technical-ish. It was just DHCP on the firewall or the server, and why, and he gave me such a BS answer, and I stopped him because everything was going well. I was like, look, you're BSing me. You don't know why. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to go find out your answer before our final interview, because I liked everything else you said, and you're not going to do it again. and he's been a star employee since.
I love it. I mean,
but
you know, Brooke said it. Felicia just chimed in on the same thing. But, you know, not just technical, I would say, Brooke, in any interview, if I don't believe you in an interview, you're not getting anywhere, right?
I agree. Some of my, into what Felicia says, I have some interviews that have been extremely short. I mean, like less than 10 minutes, because I back myself out of the interview when I get somebody where I don't feel like they're being truthful with me, because I just don't want to waste my time anymore. Everybody's time is valuable. And then I have interviews that go really long. If I'm asking some additional questions, but how they answer a question for something that they don't know how to do can tell you so much about that person. So, and I mean, you know, like I said, we ask lots of technical questions, but, you know, we ask other things as well. I ask questions about documentation. And I don't really want to know, you know, what platform they used or anything like that. Although I do ask that question, I want to know how they feel about it. How do you feel about documenting something so that somebody underneath you will be able to repeat that process? Especially for higher level engineers, I want to know if you can do this so that you can help people underneath you to grow, because that's the only way you're going to move anywhere. And if that person, I call them information hogs, if I've got one of those guys, I mean, the interview's over. I don't want to talk to you anymore. If you don't want to document stuff and you want to keep everything in your head or in a notebook or whatever, you're not going to be a good fit anywhere.
Right.
Let
me jump in just as we get ready to close. I want to make sure, John or Laura, I see Jamie Choman with his hand up. I don't know if you guys can unmute him, and then someone tell me he's unmuted so we can actually let him do it. Jamie, you there? Jamie, you have to unmute yourself now. We gave you permission. There you go. Go ahead, Jamie.
Sorry, I accidentally clicked it.
Well, now you got to ask a question.
Now you have to ask a question.
All right. Well, you know, I'm really fresh in here. We're looking to hire entry level tech. We don't want someone totally green. We're looking for somewhere, you know, a little bit higher than that, a couple years of experience. You know, what kind of points, I guess, do I want to drill for sure, I guess? You know, you guys have a lot of, you know, I've been in interviews myself. You know, you guys have given me a lot of refresh of what to ask for that. But, you know, I'm looking for someone that's been help desk, but maybe a little bit better.
If you're looking for entry level, that's a wonderful opportunity to get somebody that has the aptitude and the attitude. If you've been on help desk for a little bit, you need a basic understanding of networking, basic understanding of, you know, AD servers, how all of those things work together, basic understanding of workstations. If you're using a PSA, I always ask about ticketing, because we're big on real-time ticketing, because that's how we capture the time. If somebody has not used a ticketing system before, it's going to be extremely difficult for them to come work for us, because they do not have that concept. It's not ingrained. When you have people that are earlier in their career, if they've done some of it, you can kind of get them trained up. So I would say ask about that. How have they documented things if they've been on a help desk for a while, you know, a couple of years or whatever. I would also ask them, you know, why are they looking to change? If they're going to come from from some other place to your place, what are you looking for the change, to see if what they're looking for as far as where they want their career to go, if that's going to be a good match for you guys.
And I like to ask questions that show me their troubleshooting process. They don't have to know everything, but they have to be able to lay things out logically. Like, hey, you can't get to a website. What do you do? Maybe they don't do it the same way you do it, but if they know how all this stuff connects and what order to check things in, it's probably a great fit.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we're just about out of time. Let me also say that I will tell you this. I start every interview that I've done probably for the last 30 years the same way. I start by saying, listen, I've read over your resume. I can read it more. I don't need your help on the resume right now, but tell me about yourself. Now, you'd be amazed, first off, right off the bat, 80% of the people will start to tell you about their job history, right? And then you have to let them go for a little while and then say, hey, that's great, but tell me about you, not your job history. And get them speaking, get them talking, get them involved a little bit, you know, as far as that goes. Brooke, ironically, you talked about testing people to see if they follow directions. And we had multiple people try and raise their hands right at the end instead of posting in Q&A. We ran out of time. So I want to thank everybody for their time today. We certainly hope that you received valuable information and actionable items that you can use. For those not already participating in one of our peer groups, feel free to reach out to us so that we can discuss the value along with our money back guarantee. You can reach out to George Bardisi at BVoIP. It's on the screen right now. You can reach out to Alan and Brooke. It's on the screen right now. They're all willing to help you. Thank you, Alan. George, thank you as well for your time. Everyone have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.